Welcome back to the Sports Business Take Podcast, your home for sports industry news with a little personality. I'm Paul Hine. He is Zach Creekmore. And today we are joined by a very special guest, Bob Tewksbury, former MLB player and sports psychologist, a friend of mine who I have worked with in the past in high school, and a great influence on my life. Thank you so much, Bob, for coming in today. So I introduced you a little bit, but could you explain a little more to our viewers what your background is and where you are in the sports industry?
Sure. Good to see you again. Nice to meet Zach. It's nice to see you. Yeah, we spent a few hours on the phone together, Paul, over those couple of years, to
Yeah,
say the least. And
yeah, for sure.
you're a diligent worker and a great student, and you'll be successful in no matter what you do. No doubt this podcast is the start of that. So happy to be here. But yeah, former major league player, played for 6 different teams over 18-year professional career, 13 of that in the big leagues with Yankees, Cubs, Cardinals, Rangers, Padres, Twins, and then went back to school and got a master's in sports psychology. So I'm not officially a sports psychologist because I don't have a PhD, but I have a PhD in pitching and then a master's degree in mental skills or sports psychology. Yeah, and then we hooked up. I think your dad was looking for some assistance for you as a high school player, and
Yeah,
um,
that started because we read your book, actually.
oh, was it the book? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The book is 90% Mental. It's co-authored by Scott Miller, and it's been out since 2018, and it's done very well. So yeah, the book has led to a lot of clients, and it was fun to do. And actually, just spoke to a guy today in California who read the book and kind of wants me to help coach him a little bit in coaching. So that was fun. But yeah, so won 110 games, one more than I lost. I lost 102. I made an all-star team. I'm probably known for my control. I have one of the lowest walks per 9 innings ratios in the history of the game. Actually, the highlight would be 233 innings pitched in 1992 with 20 walks.
that doesn't
Followed
happen anymore, by the way.
No, no, and then followed up with 219 innings the next year and only 20 walks. Control was my forte. Now I have my own private practice. Actually working as the mental skills coach for the Lady Black Bears up in Maine, their Maine basketball team, which is really
Oh,
fun.
nice.
Last year they won the America East and got to play Ohio State in the NCAA tournament. They didn't win that game, but they played well, and I'm going back there again this year. And then I have a handful of clients. I have one guy in the big leagues, two AAA guys, a bunch of college guys. I've actually not working with high school guys anymore just because the main team takes up so much time. So I stick to the pro level guys. But yeah, and that's what we live in here in Wells. And you can see I got some artwork behind me. I've been painting as part of my hobbies. I turned that one around because it was pretty ugly, but uh, but I have some other ones that I've done that I like, and then golfing a lot, keeping busy. Yeah.
Awesome.
Love it.
It honestly, I didn't know all those things about your playing career. I didn't remember, so that was good to hear the recap of that again. I forgot how good of a pitcher you were. But after your playing career, what made you want to get into sports psychology, or as you call it, mental skills, in the first place?
Well, I certainly could have used it when I was playing. Harvey Dorfman was a mentor of mine when I got into this field, and but he was also working with athletes then on other teams, and so I remember talking with him before I decided to do it, and just said, "Hey, is this something you think that going back to school and having getting a degree and stuff would be worthwhile?" And he said yes, and so yeah, so I went back to school. I was working at Nesson, doing the pre and post game work, and was consulting with the Red Sox, but decided to get a little bit more training and mental skills. And so yeah, I went back to school and started the Red Sox program in 2004, 20 years ago. Started the Red Sox mental skills program and worked there until 2013. And then I went to the Players Association for a year, back to the Red Sox for 2 years, and then I went to the Giants for 2 years, and then the Cubs for 2 years. And then COVID came, and everyone went home, and I just decided to stay home and work remotely from home.
As did a lot of people.
Yep, a lot of people. Yep.
No, and that's fantastic. I love to hear your story and the journey that you've really experienced. You kind of mentioned at it, but the difference between your relationship as a player with sports psychology and mental skills and the one you have now as a coach, I can see how drastically different it may be. Could you speak on that relationship and the differences you might experience, the things maybe you wish you knew as a young man, and maybe the things that you know now that might impact that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, when I was playing, I learned a lot about imagery and visualization. When I went back to school, I learned the science behind it, became
Mm,
much more informed in that regard. I think, what I learned as what I finally figured out as a 35, 36-year-old pitcher, I would have liked to have known when I was 25 or 26. And so that's the stuff that I learned on my own, but now I could teach somebody younger that may give them an advantage earlier in their career versus later in their careers. But learning how to control the emotions of a game, learning how to slow the game down, controlling that inner voice, understanding what you can and can't control. There's all kinds of things. The challenges of a professional athlete aren't just the competition uh, that you face externally. It's dealing with the internal distractions and competition that you have yourself. And I think that what I try to do now is help players minimize those challenges through some tools that, you know, doesn't mean you're going to play better all the time, but it means that you give yourself a better chance to play better more often.
Absolutely, and I remember that's a phrase I heard when we were working together, and I remember the visualization techniques and all that. So that makes total sense. I wanted to ask, what do you think is the most common misconception about sports psychology that people have? You have worked with a lot of different levels of athletes. What have you seen about the most common misconception from the public about the field that you actually do, the work that
Yeah.
you actually do?
Uh, Boy, that's a good one too. Probably that it's kind of, if you need this, something's wrong,
mm,
Right.
that you're weak
Yeah.
or that something's wrong, but everyone needs it. I mean, everyone goes through struggles. I tell a story about playing with Paul Molitor, who's a Hall of Famer, ninth on the all-time hit list. And I asked him one time, he was 41 years old. It was both of our last seasons. And I asked him, I said, do you ever lose your confidence? And he said, yeah. And he said, if I'm 0 for 10 or 0 for 12, I feel like I'm never going to get another hit. And that's a Hall of Famer. That's ninth on the
mm,
all-time hit list. So those feelings are normal, and everyone has them. But he said, and that's why he's a Hall of Famer. He said, if I get to that point, he had a plan. He said, I bunt for a hit or try to bunt for a hit just to, I got a hit, or I hit the ball to right field and try to shorten my swing. So he had a plan. A lot of people try harder when they're not going well. And
I
that
did.
is, yeah. And how did that work for you, young man?
Not too well
Not
until
very
I started
well.
working with you.
Not too well. So I think the biggest thing is that, you know, I don't need that. It's a weakness, but everyone can benefit from it. And some people need it more than others.
mm. Well said, and I think that's really key. It flows really well into my next question, so I appreciate your analysis. We always say how much mentality, how much of sports and life is mental, right? How much mentality is a key piece of that. Your book even mentions it, 90% mental. It's in the title, right?
Hmm.
How do you believe this increased awareness that I really think our society has been taking in the last couple of years and growing initiatives towards mental health, towards sports psychology and awareness, especially in the life of athletes, will continue to change the world of sports?
I just think the field's going to continue to grow. I think,
Mm,
that the fMRIs, the more brain study that research that's coming out, the mind body connection research that started through meditation and mindfulness, the scientific data behind the benefits of mindfulness practice and the long standing research associated with imagery. You can see the Olympic athletes now, watching the Olympics, and you can see the individual sport people collecting themselves, imagining, performance. They're closing their eyes. They're not tired. They're seeing themselves perform. And so I think it's going to continue to grow. And I do think that the field itself is going to go more, I think, within the field, there'll be more people requiring licensure because I think so many people are becoming, getting to a certain level that they're going to eventually run into clinical issues. And I think that teams, I get teams are going to look for more licensed people just because they can do both versus just someone with a master's degree. Not to say that you can't be efficient with a master's degree. You can, and you have to make proper referrals to people with clinical issues. That's what I do. If I find anything that's clinical in nature, I make referrals to people. But anyone that wants to get in the field now, I recommend that they get a PhD, something in clinical, could be social work, could be clinical psychology, along with something in mental skills coaching.
mm,
Yeah, we heard you mention the meditation and the mindfulness in that
Mm-hmm.
whole answer, and I remember that vividly. Downloading Headspace on my phone and
Mm-hmm.
going through that on game day on the bus, and I remember it really calming me down before a game, and I would be more prepared for that game. Talking about some of the tools that you use with your clients and with your athletes, how do you gauge what an athlete needs? Is it through something like, I remember when we first started together, I took a DISC assessment, which is like a personality test. Do you base everything off of that, or do you factor in other
No,
things as well?
no. Yeah, it's more of a behavioral test, but you remember the disc, yeah, and you were a high D, off the charts D. I still don't know if I've seen someone as high as yours, and I've done about 100 of them. So that's not a bad thing. It just means you're really driven and result, and that was part of your problem in playing is that you were so result based that you never were satisfied. And but anyway, we
Yeah.
won't get into that story.
I
Um,
think the mindset came with maturity,
okay,
just for
yeah,
perspective.
definitely. Yeah, that you were young and energetic and had goals, and that's great. But so I think I use the assessment just as a tool to try to get to know the athlete better. As you know, it measures behavior and your natural state, and then your adapted state. And your adapted state is your sporting environment. So that gives me a baseline of what the person's behaviors are like. Some people are more fast-paced, result-based, and fast-paced. Some people are more analytic and slow-paced, and so that helps. And then I have another assessment that I use with baseball players, hockey players. It's kind of more related to on the field, on the ice type of stuff. And I even have one for basketball that I've helped, and golf actually. And that's more on field stuff that, what were you thinking? What happened? How did you respond to that when that happened? What type of challenges did you face? How did you handle those challenges? So I combine those, and then we talk about it. And as you know, we used to follow up. How'd your game go? What did you think? What happened? So a lot of it is through discussion. It's not a quick fix. It's not a magic wand that's going to change things. It's not a pill you take that makes you feel better. It's common sense hard work that athletes have to go try and try again, and hopefully through repetition and practice it becomes a new way of thinking, and if you change your thoughts you can change your performance.
Excellent words and really wise and well said. I find it interesting. I'm currently working on building a mindfulness newsletter of sorts for the club that I'm at. I'm kind of in charge of bringing these new initiatives forward. And as we've kind of talked about, awareness and bringing that to athletes is really important, just like your role in helping athletes like Paul and like the people that you work with become more mentally aware of those things that they do and the things that they should be doing. So, in kind of that context, what is the number one resource that you connect your clients with, whether it's a book, a thought process, a website, something where they can go and find that piece of information that can help take them to that next level of that deepening of their understanding of themselves?
Mm-hmm. There's a young man has a channel on YouTube called Mastery Blueprint, I believe, and he actually interviewed me on he had wasn't a podcast, it's his channel, and he's done a lot of stuff on all of that. That's really, really good. I think that's still the name of it. I can check real quick and let you know.
Interesting.
That would be
That's
awesome.
not the answer that I told Zach. I thought I knew the answer to that question for you. That was not what I was expecting at all.
What was the answer?
I thought you were going to say meditation and like headspace.
No, that depends on who the person is,
Of course.
and what you need to go through. So let me see if I have there we go, subscription.
If you
Hang
can't
on,
find it, don't
boys.
worry.
Here we go.
Exploring the limits of human performance.
There we go. Zach's on
That's
the
not
ball.
right.
What is it?
I found your interview.
There you go. That's the
I
one.
love it.
Yep.
Zach's
Going
on the
straight
ball.
into my likes. I'm watching it later today.
Yep, there you go. So that's one, but Headspace is another one. I refer some books that I have clients read, The Inner Game of Tennis, Harvey Dorfman's book, The Mental Keys to Hitting. So I have multiple things. Sometimes I'll send video clips from movies or channels or stuff like that. So it depends on what the athlete needs. So there's a number of resources to do everything. There's just not one way to skin the proverbial cat.
No,
That
absolutely,
makes perfect
totally agree.
sense.
Because it really is an athlete individualized experience. But I think you gave some really great resources to both the viewers and that I hopefully can share with more people that can hopefully continue to grow awareness and bring a new level of athlete experience, right? Because I'm sure you've experienced it, but speaking with people and you see the negative effects of just them not taking the right steps or the wrong mental processes. Myself, I coach youth soccer. I work with a lot of athletes, and being an athlete myself and working in collegiate swimming, you see the impact, and it really, really is huge. So I wanted to say I really appreciate the work that you're doing. It really is important.
Yeah, and talking about that athlete-specific approach, how does that approach change when you're working with professional athletes versus like high school kids or lower level athletes?
It's pretty much the same, Paul, really. Everyone has similar struggles. They're just magnified a little more. I've had the stuff that you and I shared is the same stuff that I've shared with big league players. It's about
interesting
realistic goals and expectations, self-talk, journaling, imagery,
right,
mindfulness practice, understanding your controllables, how to respond to different things. And the language,
guys,
may change a little bit just because, if a guy's in the big leagues, I can speak his language, I really know what's going on, but the premise of things are pretty much the same.
Right. With the big league guys, the approach doesn't change in terms of them thinking like, oh, I need this for my livelihood, or
they may think that, but that doesn't help their performance. So what do you mean?
Right,
as far as needing mental skills coaching?
Right. Yeah. Like, is their mindset any different in terms of being accepting of the methods that you use?
Well,
and how do they approach it differently?
Well, when you work for a big league team, the roster is full there's veteran players, there's newcomers, there's rookies, and there are people that have experienced mental skills coaching in the past that either had a good experience or maybe didn't. That will affect how they respond to you. The challenge with people in the major league or in any professional team is that the players know that the team is paying you. And I think I've had a lot more honest conversations with athletes since I've not been affiliated with a team because they know I'm not connected to them. So, yeah, and that's not true with everybody, but I think it's true in general.
Right.
So,
like guys don't want stuff that they say to you to be used
to go up
them
to
in
the
a contract
chain
negotiation.
They don't want it to go up the flagpole.
Right.
They don't want anyone to know. and so they hide stuff. So this really works best when people are really open with themselves and feel vulnerable and can share what they're feeling, and that's how you can help people when they get to that point. And the team stuff can be a little prohibitive in that, but the major league players have the same stuff. I mean, they need results to keep their job, make salary. And if you're a year away from free agency, you want to play well to get paid well. And so there's all kinds of pressures that come up outside of just seeing the ball and hitting the ball. And
Right.
those are things that a lot of the stuff with professional players isn't so much it's managing those other things outside the game, and not just confidence. They have confidence. They wouldn't be there if they didn't have confidence, but they're managing, being away from their family or having a new family or living up to a contract or an expectation or, dealing with an injury or things like that. There's so many different things that happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for elaborating on that.
Very wise words. Very wise words. Kind of shifting focus a little bit, because we always say, and Paul always says, he has a tendency to be a bit of a shameless plug. So in the sense of, you plugged your book a little bit at the beginning, and we love a shameless plug, so no shame. I was curious kind of to hear about your experience writing a book, what that has been to be an author, to be selling a book, and the impact that has had on your own life and your business and that type of experience.
Well, it was a great experience. Like I said, I had a co-author that was really good, Scott Miller. He did a terrific job. He's got a great sense of humor. He made it seamless, really, and the whole experience was really good. It was great. It took a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of editing, but it still went by really quickly. And it was a game changer for me as far as clients. I mean, to be published and to have guys like Lester and Anthony Rizzo and Andrew Miller and Rich Hill and talk about their stories and share that. It's powerful because they're such great players and super people. So I appreciate their sharing that, and it's led me to a lot of clients. Got people that send me emails or that, hey, thanks for the book, it really helped. And so it's been great. And yeah, it was just a really good experience. I still can't believe I wrote a book, but it's
Absolutely. And the reason I met you in the first place, which definitely has been a good influence for me. So I'm glad that I read it in the first place. So just before you get out of here, I want to ask you one more question. We ask all of our guests the same closing question. If you could go back in time and be involved in one moment in sports history, or in one game in sports history, either for you it could be as a player or as a mental skills coach, whichever you choose, which game would it be, or which moment would it be, and why?
wow.
It's a thinker, for sure.
Yeah, it is. Boy, that's a big question. I think, well, one thing that I would like to have done as an athlete that I didn't do would be play in the World Series.
Right.
I think that would be pretty cool to be on the mound starting a World Series game. So I think that would be my thing as a player, would be to have done that. And you know, I think it would be really cool to be around the Olympic athletes, like watching the Olympics as a professional, to be a resource for them and seeing all these highly skilled athletic people. So professionally, it might be working in some capacity with the Olympics, but professionally, it would have been pitching in a World Series game.
Wow, well-timed answer with the Olympics being on.
There
right
you
now.
go. Hey, I just set people up all the time, plugging people, making your job easy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Tewks, so much for coming on today. This was really great. Go check out his book, 90% Mental, and reach out if you feel like you need help with any of the things we've talked about today. And I mean, I know the right guy with the tools. He's sitting right in front of me. So thank you
Thanks,
so
Paul.
much,
Great
Tewks,
to
for
see
coming
you
on.
again.
Good to see
Zach,
you too.
nice to meet you. You
Nice
guys
to meet
take
you. Good to
care.
have you